All right, everyone. Welcome in to Post Loons. I am your host for this evening. I will also. It's looking like I'm going to be the only one on the stream tonight. Uh, my co-host Dom was at the game and was having some issues getting back, so y'all are stuck with just me. But the good news is that we get to talk about a lopsided win for Minnesota United, which I don't think I've gotten to do on one of these Post Loons before. So I promise it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a good time. If you were at the game, you surely enjoyed a good time yourself, and even if you were watching from home. So we've got a lot to talk about here. 4 goals scored by Minnesota United for the first time since about a year ago when they scored 4 goals against the Portland Timbers. So we can now expect to see goals when the Loons play the Timbers. So again, this is sort of soccer's Post Loons, your traditional live post game show after Minnesota United games. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, please feel free to send them along. I'll have plenty of time to get to them. It's looking like the YouTube stream is the best way to go for those. I see a few folks are already in there, and we will get to those shortly. You might not be seeing us on Twitter at all today, so we hope you were able to find us, whether you're listening live or listening in a time that is not Saturday night. So again, Minnesota United defeating the Timbers 4-1 here. First time scoring that many goals since last time at home against the Timbers, which was at the end of last July. This was just a really incredible result for the Loons, and it wasn't the most straightforward game. If you look through that first half there, it was touch and go. It was physical. There were a lot of fouls. Obviously, we'll talk yellow cards and talk the officiating a little bit here. But so not the most straightforward game there, and yet Minnesota United found a way to secure control of the game, really dominate the last half hour or so in that second half. I think I probably wasn't the only person who was sweating a little bit when the Timbers scored that first goal and went from being 2-0 to 2-1. You hear that it's the most dangerous lead in soccer, hockey, whatever goal scoring sport you want it to be, right? That 2-0 is the most dangerous lead, and when a game becomes 2-1, it does become a little scary, and then you've just got some moments of magic on the other end there to ice this game and put it away. So as we always do on Post Loons here, we've got a few quick topics we want to get to first, and then we will take all of your questions. The first thing that really struck me as I was watching this game was obviously the performance from Bongi Longwane, and again, that's not a particularly hot take to say, but what really stood out for me about Bongi's game tonight was his playmaking. You look at the goal that or the assist he had, that he sends a low cross across the box to Ray, who's parked perfectly at the far post, really, for a tap in there. Bongi's playmaking just stood out to me tonight in a really incredible fashion. I think what really struck me too, and this is sort of a contrast to some of the other players in Minnesota United's attack, and it's not something that they necessarily do wrong. It's just something that Bongi does really, really well. His head is up and his vision is up, and he knows situationally what's going on all around him in the box, whether it's a longer possession sequence, right, where the team is in the box trying to break things down, trying to find a chance, or it's him, sprinting past Chara on a breakaway, right? He has his head up. He knows where his players are. And that was really key, getting that assist with Ray, that he's down along the end line. He looks up, sees where Ray is able to place that pass perfectly so that the keeper can't get to it. It's not going to be deflected by a center back or anything. And boom, it's a tap in, probably the easiest goal Emmanuel Reynoso is ever going to score, right? And so Ray's playmaking is really Bongi's playmaking, excuse me, is really what I think put this game away tonight. That sealed the deal, iced it, whatever you want to call it. I think Bongi's playmaking was really a key success point there. And that wasn't something that was there as much in the first half for Minnesota United. In the attack, it just seemed disjointed, which is something that I think we talk a lot about on these streams, right? I can think of many games where with Jeremy or Jacob or Dom or whoever, I've sat here and debated how does somebody fix Minnesota United's attack, right? And tonight I think was actually a pretty simple thing. It was looking to play make, and that was something that Bender Garcia struggled with a little bit in that first half. There was 2 sequences that really stand out to me where he was in a one-on-one situation with the defender at the top of the box, and he had Songbin in an interior capacity, towards the middle of the box, one pass away, right? One pass away, a pass that would pretty inevitably lead to a shot, goal or not. Who are we to speculate, right? But would lead to a shot there, and that he didn't take those passes. That he took a shot that was a contested shot and went into the shin guards of the defender on him, and then a whole attacking sequence just kind of poof goes away. But that changed in the second half, and a couple things happened there. One was just maybe some confidence from this team, right? Once you've scored 3 goals, why not go score a fourth? Bongi keeping his head up there and getting some more touches, I think, helped as well. And actually getting Curvin Arriaga in the game and taking Mender out, I think also put a little bit more emphasis on the passing. But this attack really, really thrived when that front 4, front 3, when those attacking players were passing the ball to each other around the box, which again, it sounds like an extraordinarily simple thing to do. Now that's the hardest area of the field to complete passes, right? But it really does make a difference when a team is doing that, and that showed here tonight, I think, with some of those opportunities, which also leads me to the third point I want to bring up here, which is that chaos creates chances, and this is something that we have talked about before. That the goal of an attacking team in soccer has to be to disorganize the opponent, and these passes do that. You look at some of these counterattacks, these breakaways. Minnesota United led in possession tonight, but this wasn't a game that really felt like they outpossessed the Timbers, right? It didn't feel like it was lopsided that the Timbers had 70% possession or something like that. But to me, I was a little actually surprised to see United's number at, I think it was about 56%, to see it that high, because they had so many chances that were from these up-tempo kind of quick pace opportunities, some of which were direct counterattacks, right? You think Bongi charging down the field and just out-sprinting Chara, right? That's an opportunity that came directly, that was at its core a counterattack. But just low passes across the box, these crosses that were actually being completed, finding guys that force defenders to pivot their hips, that force a goalkeeper to be diving the opposite direction of what he thought he was going to have to dive. All those things just create chaos for a defense, and that's always going to be a good thing. When defenders are scrambling there, that's always going to be a good situation. And again, that's part of what helped ice the game here for Minnesota United. I really do think so. So again, an incredibly successful attacking performance, especially when you consider that Teemu Pukki is sitting there on the horizon, a Finnish sunrise, I think we could call him in that sense, ready to join this team in the coming weeks. And the obvious assumption is that that's going to only boost the attack by giving this team, as Adrian Heath would put it, give this team the first proper number 9 it's had since Christian Ramirez was wearing the black and blue, which was really gray and blue when he was playing for the Loons. So before we get to all of your comments, and I love to see that there are a lot coming in, I promise we will get to all of them. We want to share a quick ad message from our friends at Better Edge, who are sponsoring today's Post Loons. So the folks at Better Edge are bringing us a website that can be used to make bets with friends. The days of using cash or Venmo for one-to-one bets are over. Better Edge, a Minneapolis-based company, has revolutionized the social sports betting scene, allowing their users to bet with or against each other on NBA, NHL, MLB, and soccer competitions like the Premier League, Champions League, and of course, Major League Soccer. They also offer weekly pick'em competitions as well, like our very own MLS Pick'em, where you can bet real money or edge coin, which is play money, and make your picks for the weekend's games. Better Edge is not a sportsbook that profits off of your loss. You don't bet against Better Edge, you bet against other users on the platform, which is why it's legal to use in Minnesota and 46 other states nationwide. Sign up today and get a free $20 in your account when you visit betteredge.com/loons and create your account. Again, use betteredge.com/loons to sign up and get $20 in your account today, courtesy of our friends at Better Edge. So we will dive into some of your comments here. Again, YouTube's the easiest way for us to see them. Twitter, I don't think works anymore on many levels. So YouTube it is. First here from foot_trap10. This game has to be a confidence booster. Bongi looks amped. Yeah, I think it really has to be. Again, this is a team that Minnesota United, isn't a team that scores 4 goals particularly often, right? not that there are too many soccer teams that are scoring 4 goals week in, week out, but the Loons, again, hadn't done this since July of last year against the Timbers, and that was a 4-4 draw. I'm sure a lot of you remember that game. It was just a bonkers match, just bonkers. Before that, I went back and scrolled through the results. The last time before July of last year that Minnesota United had scored 4 goals was September 6th of 2020. Right when MLS had kind of come back to doing those sort of semi-regional games with, I don't even know if there were fans in Allianz Field at that point. I really don't, against RSL in 2020. So that's, those are the last 2 times this team has scored 4 goals. There was the Everton friendly. I'm not counting that for this purpose here, but the confidence has to be there. And again, like I said, just before the ad break there, this is with Pookie on the horizon, that he's going to be coming into a team here that if he's ready to go next weekend, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. He's coming to a team that just managed to score 4 goals and do it in a way that seemed really confidence-inducing. That these weren't fluke goals. Obviously, an Olympico is kind of a fluke goal, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But that goal just keeps replaying in my mind of Bongi crossing that to Ray. That's just such a simple goal. And if a team can continue to score that sort of thing, that just bodes extremely well for an attack. And this is an attack that I don't think has, when was the last time that you could feel particularly confident in Minnesota United's attack? Obviously, Reynoso coming back helped with that, right? That's a confidence boost in and of itself. But it's just been a difficult year for that, with striker struggles and then Amaria eventually departing for the second time. Robin Lod going down with a really unfortunate injury. This team just hasn't had confidence in attack for a long time, and now I think there's so much upside here that this team can continue to score, and Bongi has been a huge part of that. I think from an energy standpoint, he obviously brings that, but the way he's grown into his game this year has been so impressive, that he's being more physical on the ball. He's holding defenders who are bigger and stronger than him off. He's retaining more possession, right? He's being more patient. Again, it's that it feels like he's settled into the pace of MLS play a little bit more. That he doesn't feel like when he gets the ball that he instantly needs to create something or that the opportunity is wasted, that he can take a second, hold play up. He can get his head up and look for a teammate, right? He doesn't have to create everything himself, which he does have a lot of ability and skill on the ball, but his evolution in the job that this coaching staff has done to develop him, I think they really deserve an absolute lot of credit for that. So let's talk about that Olympico. Dano here with the comment. The first time he's ever seen an Olympico in person. I imagine that there were probably 19,000 other people who saw an Olympico in person for the first time as well. I certainly have never seen one in person. I think that was probably only the second or third I've seen in a game I was watching in any capacity live. Just an incredible goal by Manuel Reynoso. The broadcast initially scored it as an own goal, which I think just on a vibes level, you got to give it to Reynoso there, no matter what. I'll be interested to see what the quotes coming out of the locker room tonight are, if he did that intentionally, or if that was just a lucky hit. He may say one thing and the reality maybe something else there, but it shows you just the amount of skill that Reynoso has on his foot. His set piece delivery can be a little inconsistent, but then you see him do something like that, which again isn't the game plan. You're not. I doubt Adrian Heath was signaling something from the sideline that said, "All right, guys, run the Olympico." Like that's not what happened there. But just a fun confidence booster for Ray, if nothing else, too. That now he knows he has this in his arsenal that he can do, and a good way for him to settle back in with his first home start since his return this season. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Hassani Dotson. Dave Valinsky here saying that Dotson had one heck of a game. I'm inclined to agree. I really am, actually. Those who've been listening to Sota Sock and post Loons and even 10K pitches or back in the ePlayer Loon days know that I've tended to be harsh with Hassani Dotson. I've been a little bit lower on him, but he had an excellent game tonight. Came in and got the start over Kervin Arriaga at what I would consider to be the number 8 role alongside Will Trapp. They're not a traditional pivot that does a defensive minded and a more central midfielder. They tend to sort of do the same thing, which it had some moments in the first half, and Hassani Dotson had some moments too. He picked up one of the yellow cards, which again, don't worry, the refereeing talk is yet to come here. But Dotson, picked up a yellow card that it was a questionable call, but one of those things that once you see a ref is calling some of those things, you need to the simplest rule in soccer, and it goes for basketball, and I imagine probably lacrosse and then other sports too, and even football is keep the opposing player in front of you. They're going to be easier to dispossess, to take down, all of those things when they're in front of you. And there were a couple of moments in the first half where Dotson was having to defend players from behind, which just isn't optimal. But he did a fine job of it. He picked up the yellow, but didn't push it beyond that, and really did well there. His passing actually was what really stood out. He had 92% pass completion, which is just really incredible for a central midfielder to do in a professional top tier level soccer game. A lot of times you'll see, maybe a center back with a 92% because they were passing back and forth a lot. And, if you can't complete those, then what are you doing as a professional soccer player? But Dotson really, really had an excellent passing game and was all over the place there. One interesting thing that I noticed with both his and Trapp's midfield contributions was just that they were playing maybe a little bit farther back than what this team needed game plan wise. And I say that, they scored 4 goals, right? The Loons did fine. But neither Trapp nor Dotson completed a pass into the penalty area. And that can mean absolutely nothing. And tonight it probably does mean absolutely nothing, right? This team scored 4 goals. They did fine. But there wasn't that link between the defensive midfield and the attack, right? Some of that, and I don't think that has to be Emmanuel Reynoso's job here, that he's the number 10, So who's going to be that connecting piece, right? That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy what Kervin Arriaga brings to Minnesota United. I think he's an excellent connector there in terms of some of his long-range distribution, his ability to distribute while he's dribbling forwards. All of those elements of his game, I think, bode really, really well for being that connective tissue and filling that number 8 role. I think Hassani Dotson can do that too, just in some of the ways that he can contribute as a shooter and as kind of a long-range presence and force guys to close out and dribble. But yeah, so to Dave's point here, Dotson definitely stepped up and filled the role that he needed to tonight, and had some difficult defensive assignments there with some of those Timbers midfielders. But really, he and Trapp both just had an excellent passing game. And again, I go back to what I said near the open here, that passing matters. And tonight is a testament to that the Loons were a better passing team than the Portland Timbers. Did that by itself contribute to 3 extra goals? Probably not, but it sure as heck didn't hurt. And so that sort of playmaking is something I think that is really, really, really important here. Another question from Dave that I'm not going to be able to answer, but I'll throw it up here because maybe somebody else in the comments might. Does McDonald's still give out free fries for more than 2 goals? I don't know, but I hope for all of you who were there that they do. Go get those free fries. This is not a team that scores more than 2 goals all that often either. So get the fried potatoes while you can. Back to Dan, I will comment here, and again, keep dropping the comments in here too. We'll keep cycling through them here. As we keep celebrating a 4-1 win for Minnesota United over the Portland Timbers. And of course, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all of those very friendly things to our streams. We do appreciate it when y'all help get the word out about what we're doing at Sota Soccer. This match really just on a dime there, and turned from 2-1 with Portland rolling with I think a lot of nerves in that stadium. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's 4-1, and this game is over. The dagger's been scored. I think the key to that was just some playmaking by Bongi, making things happen. And that's what this attack has needed for so long, was just a player who can step up and just take charge, who can ice a game. And that's been Reynoso at times, but he can't be the only guy, because the game plan against him is going to be knock him around, foul him around, try to get him off the ball. So who's gonna be the secondary option there? At times it's been Fragapane, at times it's been Robin Lod. Tonight it was Bongi, and in the future maybe it can be Timu Puki, right? That would probably be the goal, the plan, given that he is coming in as a designated player. But tonight it was Bongi, and I think that's a really big piece of his evolution. He's had great games, he's scored game winners, but tonight he won this game for Minnesota United, or at least he certainly sealed it. He sure as heck iced it. And that is a kind of developmental advance that I think really just can't be understated what he brings in that regard. And again, like in the previous comment I threw up here, that he was amped, that he was a leader in that sense too. And I don't like to get too lost in some of the narratives around that, some of the those things, but I can't imagine for any of those teammates in the Loons locker room that they just don't love playing with Bongi and playing with a guy who can bring that kind of energy, who can be creating for himself and looking for other people, and be doing putting in the work rate at that stage of the game, because that's what's controllable. When the other team has momentum, the easiest thing to control is a player's work rate and positioning and all those things that Bongi did, put himself in opportunities to get goals, get an assist, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's a 4-1 win just like that. So really compelling performance by him, a great developmental showing, and and something that I think the coaches will be putting up in the film room for him to say, Bongi, this is what we need from you every night. If he can, bring a performance of this caliber, if he can continue incorporating the elements that he showed tonight in his game, he becomes a much more dangerous attacker for a lot of other MLS teams to reckon with here. All right. So from Otto here, was this not the most disappointing reffing performance in MN UFC history? 6 cards to MN versus 1 to Portland, constantly in the way and bumping into players. Was crazy to see in person. Yeah, the officiating definitely becomes a storyline from this game, which is always unfortunate because I don't think any of us like to bemoan officiating. And the fact that we're talking about officiating after a 4-1 win, I think is an indicator of just how impossible to ignore it was. As far as the differential in yellow cards, right? I think it's hard to look at that and be like, oh yeah, the ref had an agenda or bet the over or something insane like that. And some of that you have to look at with Minnesota United, and you sort of have to, as a player, take the temperature early on when you see that first yellow against, I think it was Tapias who got the first yellow there, and maybe the first, I'm looking here now. I think it was the first maybe 12 or 13 minutes. It might have even been earlier in the game. When he got that yellow card, I think you as a player have to sort of look at that and say, oh, that's what's getting a yellow card, and take that into your mindset here, as you go. Right now, obviously that can't be at the forefront of your mind too much when you're defending a guy one-on-one. You can't be thinking of, man, I wonder what the standard of a yellow card is going to be for this ref, right? You can't have that thought going through your mind. That doesn't work. But it does have to be something of a consideration, I think. And so that factors in a little bit here. But there were also just some yellow cards that were tough to argue, real tough to argue. And I think one of those goes to Adrian Heath. Sota Soccer's own Jacob Schneider reported after the game that tonight's official went up to Adrian Heath after the game and apologized for giving him that yellow card for dissent. And I can't say I've heard of that happening before in MLS. I'm sure it does. All these players and officials, they go into the locker rooms, they go into the bowels of the stadium, and things happen. Their conversations happen, right? There's a small pool of coaches and a small pool of refs. People know who each other are. But that, a referee apologizing for issuing a yellow card and saying that it was the referee's fault just seems really remarkable to me. And of course, it becomes that his yellow card in particular becomes even higher stakes because now he has accumulated too many yellow cards and is suspended for next weekend's game against Austin, as is Michael Boxall, who also got a yellow card for dissent. And now those yellow cards for dissent are the hardest ones to unpack because we just don't know what was said on the field, right? We can try to read lips, but I'm not very good at that. If any of you all are pro lip readers and want to go find that clip and offer speculation as to what Michael Boxall said to earn that yellow card, by all means, please do. But it's it's difficult to think about there. And with Boxall too, again, it's sort of one of those things that if you have a ref here who, again, coming into the game, and they said it on the broadcast that tonight's official had given out the most yellow cards so far. So tonight was probably going to be a yellow card fest there are probably going to be 7 yellow cards handed out. It was just sort of who they would fall to. That maybe he just has a little bit thinner skin as an official, and that's something that maybe should be part of the scouting report, right? If you're Boxall and you're someone who's a leader on this team, someone who's going to be that talker, kind of the enforcer, maybe that has to be a consideration. And maybe he just said, the unfortunate combination of magic words to draw that. But he is also suspended for that home game against Austin now. And so it's obviously difficult to stomach. And again, some controversial yellow cards in there, and hard to stomach. And also to Otto's point here, some of the officials' positioning getting in the way there. Screened off Chara at one point in the first half. I want to say a Minnesota United counterattack bounced off of him at some point. I'm sure y'all who were at the game in person saw even more there, just because the broadcast only picks up so much and it doesn't follow the referee back and forth so much as the ball in the game. But not the greatest mechanics there either. And so I do wonder if anything will come out from the league there, specifically around that Heath yellow card, of saying, hey, this shouldn't have happened. That whole sequence where Heath drew that yellow card was sort of confusing to me, why it even really became a thing in the first place, because it's in the second half here. I think this might have been either just after, it was around the Portland equalizer now. That, let's see, I think it was about 5 minutes after the Portland equalizer, and only about a minute before Bongi's breakaway that made this game 3-1 and kind of settled things, that a Portland player was on the touchline, and Reynoso comes to close him down, and the Portland player goes down and knocks the ball out, and it's a Minnesota United throw, and there's a player down. It doesn't appear to be like grievously injured. He just fell down in the course of play, and so Loons like to take a quick throw in down the field, and the referee blows the whistle and calls the play back for that throw to pause for an injured player. The Portland player immediately pops up, because it was transparently a time wasting tactic, right? I think that Timbers player would admit to the same thing, that he stayed down just to get that, and even then, that's not something you see called back, because it wasn't for a foul. It was such a weird sequence, and in the course of this game, when it's getting nervy, it's 2-1, right? Timbers have some momentum. Here's the United chance to go down and get some attacking momentum, get a look off the break. And it's pause for this. Of course, Adrian Heath is going to be irate. Of course, the players are going to be irate. And so again, we don't know what he was saying, what he said to the official. But again, it seems like a strange yellow card to give out when it was probably questionable refereeing in the first place there. And of course, he did apologize and say it was his own fault, which just adds to all of that. Otto with a follow-up here. To me, it wasn't just the yellows themselves. It was also just the ref's placement on the pitch. Altered a good amount of plays just being in the way for both sides. Absolutely. I noticed that in the first half. I'm sure y'all who were in the stadium noticed that even a little bit more. That, that's anytime any sort of narrative about the game is about the referee is just not good, when the referee is altering the game in such an obvious way that fans just don't like, because I think fans from both teams would have had some and players from both teams would have had some gripes with that officiating, though. Obviously, the yellow card imbalance perhaps leaves one fan base a little more frustrated than the other. Just a lot to think about here. From Dan, should Padelford be moved up to second left back ahead of DJ behind Lawrence? This is an interesting consideration, because Padelford, he seems to just be getting more and more confident the more he gets these first team minutes, right? The more he's getting used to the Allianz atmosphere and the adrenaline and the crowd rush and the wonder wall and all of this stuff. He's looked really, really solid here. I struggle a little bit with moving him ahead of DJ Taylor, just because I tend to be a fan of what DJ Taylor brings to this team as an attacking option for fullbacks, and it's because Adrian Heath's system has always been very fullback reliant. You think to how much Roman Mettener did for this system in say that 2019, 2020, 2021, when he was healthy in there, of how core he was to that attack, and how often the attack moved down the right side, right? Whether it was Roman and Ethan Finley or Robin Lod or whoever it was on that right side, so much moved down there, because the Loons haven't been a team that have traditionally emphasized that number 8 role that I was talking about, where I was saying that Dotson and Trapp sometimes lack that connective tissue, right? Again, Curvinari, I get helps with that, and Jan Gregush sort of helped with that at times, but he wasn't exactly what the system needed. It's very fullback reliant for getting the ball from the defense to the attack. That's just how this team tends to be. and what Adrian Heath asks of those folks. And he asks a lot in terms of weak side defense too, that we've unpacked previously, of expecting the fullback who's defensively on the side opposite where the opposing team has the ball. They have a lot of responsibility defensively in this system. So fullback is not a position that Minnesota United can take lightly. And that's why I think really some of the Loons grabbing a sort of a foothold in MLS and becoming a more consistent team there really, I hate to say coincided because it's not a coincidence, but was right around the time that the fullback position started taking a step forward and guys like Metnier came in here. So all that to say, fullback is important. And I think DJ Taylor fits the mold of what Minnesota United needs in a fullback. He offers some distribution, some distribution capabilities, that he's a capable crosser. He's a good guy to have on set pieces as well, that if the ball bounces to him, he can make a play as an attacker, whether that's a shot from distance. He has that range to his game. He can also hit the passes he needs to there. Now that's more so when DJ Taylor's playing on the right side. Excuse me. When he's on the left, it's a little bit different ball game. So that's going to be kind of a non-answer for you, Dan. That on the left side, Padelford getting minutes there over DJ Taylor, probably better. I think the solution maybe more to look for chances to get DJ Taylor involved on the right side, where Valentin's been playing. And so we'll see how the development continues there for Padelford, but really encouraged so far. He made some excellent one-on-one defensive plays tonight that were really necessary in the box, and having that composure again. It's all part of the developmental process, and we've seen this team. Minnesota United is not a team that's been the most successful developmentally, but Bongi has been a step forward in that direction. Kervin Arriaga has been a step forward in the right direction there, and I think Padelford absolutely can be as well, as long as he keeps leveraging these minutes and playing with that composure. So Eric Grady has a question here. How worried were you when it was 2-1 in the 67th minute? Heath looked like he had them packed in tight. I think a lot of folks were sweating here, and again, we saw that with the tension that just kind of overflowed there into Heath earning that yellow card, because this felt like a game that just it was hard to feel too much confidence around it. I think throughout that first half, even before the goals were scored, Minnesota United had been the better team. They were forcing saves out of Ivicic. That they were getting some of the shots in there, but they were also being wasteful with some of these chances. And so then the goals come there and go into halftime up 2-0. That's awesome. That's fantastic. But it's 2-0, right? And all of a sudden, one play there, and we haven't really talked about the Portland goal yet. But not the best goal to concede, of just of Bully getting between defenders there, and then one with the keeper. Irwin goes down a little early, and it sort of takes a sort of odd angle. I'm not one to critique goalkeeper play too much, because you got to take an angle at some point and take a guess, at that range. And Bully beats him near post, which is suboptimal. And just at that point, Portland's getting momentum there, and so it's hard to say that goal even came against the run of play. So yeah, I think it was a nerve-wracking situation there, but I think Heath actually deserves some credit for the outburst around that yellow card, because I think you look at Bongi scored the goal a matter of seconds after that, and maybe that was some sort of spark plug, right? And again, I don't like to speculate too much on the leadership dynamics and the mental side of the game, because we just don't know what these players are thinking in that moment. But when you see your coach, so irate at a call that was just a questionable at best, probably more accurately just bad, weird call. You see your coach is so irate that he's drawing a yellow card, and you as players feel like maybe you're being victimized because you've been getting these weird soft yellows all night, and then your coach is mad and gets one too. Maybe that stirs something in you, right? And then you have a guy like Bongi come out and make that play. I think there was just we've talked about it several times now, that just some sort of switch flipped so quickly there for Minnesota United. Whatever that was, there needs to be more of that. There just does. If it was something he said, that he gave somebody the hairdryer from the sideline there, that it was something the players said to themselves, that it was just sort of an internal collective shift forward. Whatever went on right there worked. It turned the tide. And so I think Heath deserves some credit for potentially being a source of inspiration in that moment. And also, Adrian Heath's substitutions has been a narrative as old as time. But he was successful there tonight with making moves at the right time. And here Christopher says thought Garcia wasn't too bad even with getting taken off early. And I don't think he was particularly bad at all. I think he has a challenging role to fill within this system. That that he's Garcia's he's a guy with pace who's going to play at the top of this formation. That he's a 9 who's not really a 9. Those of you who have who've played Football Manager, the video game, in different capacities. He plays that like advanced forward role, of a striker position. He really plays that to a T. That he's going to look to push that back line, right? That the Loons are going to look to get the ball in behind him, whether that's a low through ball or wrapping it on the cross. That they want something from Mender Garcia to run onto, and that's a difficult role to play because that's really boom or bust, right? And it's very dependent on the distributors. He can time his run perfectly, be lined up right between the center backs, just onside. And if the pass is just weighted, a foot too far, it's going to go into the keeper's arms, right? It's going to roll out of bounds or something like that. So that's no knock on Mender Garcia. I think he plays his role very, very well. It's just not a role that's the most conducive to what this team is successful doing. Again, they were more successful when Mender Garcia came off, and there was a little bit more of an emphasis of passing around that attack instead of trying to find something for somebody to run onto, I think. And so I see Christopher drafting another comment, and he will throw that up. And so I think it is this that Garcia performed as he was expected to tonight. He put pressure on the back line. The own goal, that was the first goal. At first, I think, at least on the broadcast, it looked like Garcia might have gotten a foot on there. It was actually just Chara who knocked it in. But that comes from Garcia meeting expectations, from pushing that back line, from putting pressure on Chara to get to that ball to make a play, right? Chara doesn't sell out like that for that ball if he's not convinced that Mender Garcia getting the ball is an automatic goal, because Chara made a really risky play, as evidenced by the fact that he put it in his own net. That's the influence that Mender Garcia can have there, and sort of what a striker along his lines can do. And so I think it's a really encouraging sign for Mender Garcia going forward of what his role is going to be in this team, because you would assume that Teemu Pukki is going to replace him in that starting 11 as the starting striker, and then Mender Garcia is an impact sub off the bench, which I think is actually a fantastic role for him. Give him 20 minutes against some tired legs in a game, and I think he can shape that game and really change it and force defenders to reckon with new things at a stage when they'd probably rather just be focusing on, if there's going to be a post-game meal or something like that. Mender Garcia can really bring a lot in that regard. And again, the expectation for him is, I think it would be unfair to expect Mender Garcia to be bagging 2 goals a night for you, right? That's not what he's there to do. He's there to put pressure. He's there to create space underneath to and kind of behind him, which is something that tonight I was really impressed with Sang-Min Jeon and some of his positioning underneath Mender, and even later in the game, just finding pockets. It's something this team has always had for a long time. The capability for someone to find these pockets of space, or the possibility of someone finding these pockets of space that aren't quite level with the center backs, that aren't on that front line, that are just pulled back a little bit. There's, the kind of classic example is if the ball is being crossed in from the end line, of being a player that parks himself at the penalty spot right from there. And that's something that Sang-Min has shown that he's really good at. He has a lot of speed that he can actually catch up on counterattacks where maybe he's caught back a little bit, and he can actually move into that space there. And that's a really, really strong playmaking spot to just be able to pull strings from there, to be an option for players who are on that front line to cut back to there and preserve it. It can be sort of a facilitating role instead of having to try to time across all the way to the switch fields to go to the other side, work through that central playmaker. And I think Mender Garcia working in this system allows a player like Sang-Min to cook in that regard a little bit more easily. Sang-Min's role is going to be influenced by the arrival of Pukki. We don't know to what extent or in what ways yet, but it seems like Sang-Min likes to have a striker along the lines of Mender Garcia, who, to like Christopher said, is going to meet expectations in that regard and isn't necessarily there to get on ball touches. I don't think I said earlier in the show, I don't think Mender Garcia's on ball work was the strongest tonight. He had a couple possessions offensive possessions that vanish because of some decision making by him, and some of that's just being a heads up playmaker versus a heads down creator, and some of that, and so it's always difficult to critique there, but I do think Christopher's original point is absolutely right on that. That Mender Garcia had a decent game. He met expectations. He did what he needed to do, and that netted a goal indirectly via that own goal. Right. So we got a couple more comments to get to here. So feel free to throw your last comments or questions in here in the stream comments, and we'll get to them before we call it a night here. All right. We have from Eric again. Should Heath have taken Ray off with like 10 minutes to go? He got fouled so many times late with the game completely in hand. Of course, we can always talk about even Heath's substitutions. There's certainly an argument for this, especially with Ray getting back up to speed, or getting back up to match fitness and kind of getting settled in here. And he's a player who's going to get roughed up, right? That's the game plan against him. Tonight, I was looking at the stats earlier. I think he was fouled 4 times by Portland tonight, which is actually a little bit lower than normal. No, that's times that he was knocked over and a foul was called, right? He probably took double or triple that in terms of actual kind of quote unquote hits or knocks. And so taking him off is probably never a bad thing in that regard. Just preserving him a little bit there, especially, it was 4-1 with 15-ish minutes to play. And at that point, the game seemed really sealed. So I don't think it would have been a bad thing at all to keep him off. But at the same time, I think there is an argument for keeping Ray on, right? It's only 10 minutes. How much rest is that really going to provide? How much extra recovery? I don't know. And maybe keep him on as sort of a show of confidence, kind of a show of force, that because Portland is a team that the Loons are very much on par with. They're a team that's come in, that has some quality, that hasn't really gotten the wins at this stage in the season, that's going to probably be competing for one of those lower end Western Conference playoff spots to hopefully go and make a run and get a couple favorable matchups in there. And so maybe keeping your best player on for a little bit of extra time against a team like that, maybe that sends a message, right? I don't know. I also don't think it hurts as far as regaining chemistry because Ray's playing with another attacker who he arrived since the last time he was with the team, and Sangmin. Ray obviously had an extended absence, and so he's still very early on in his season. And his legs are probably, even as he's getting up to fitness, a little bit fresher. So I think there's an argument for keeping him on. I think so. There's also a very strong argument for keeping him off. And it's one of those things that if something had happened to Ray, obviously, we would be in a very different situation. Or if he'd really gotten knocked around, we'd be saying something completely different here. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that he stayed on by any means. Yeah. And we appreciate all the questions coming in, even those from Jacob Schneider. I appreciate any reference to Diogo Pacheco. He's a fantastic young player for the next pro team who got some minutes in the Kaiserslautern friendly on Wednesday, which was really fun to see him get called up onto that stage. I'm a believer in Diogo Pacheco that his time's going to come. He's a fun, attacking, very versatile playmaker. For MNUFC 2, if you get to watch them, he's the player who runs around with a mustache. Really just great guy too, from the moments I've seen of him in a very brief conversation I had with him. Just a player who's easy to cheer for in the second team there, and hopefully his chance will come with the first team pretty soon here. Emmanuel Iwe getting the first team contract locked down this week, going from just an open tryout to the second team to getting that first team contract. Seeing a Minnesota product like that is just fantastic to see. And so with that, if no one else has any other questions or comments, I think we will call it a night here. We'll look briefly ahead at next weekend. Austin FC coming to town. Never an easy fixture there by any means. And of course, the question mark going into this week will be suspensions. As of right now, as of tonight, Adrian Heath expected to be suspended again. I say expected to be there just because the official apologizing is it's so weird. I've never heard of that happening before. I've never heard of that happening. And so part of me wonders if there will be a way that the Loons can appeal that, or that the league will intervene or something, or maybe the official will send an email to Dunga Arbor and request his one backsies of the year and get to pull the yellow card back. So I don't want to say that officially there's a chance Heath will be there next weekend, but a part of me wonders if there's a chance that he'll be there. Michael Boxall is more concretely going to be suspended, which probably means Debasi was back. He's been back in the squad, was on the bench and unused substitute today. So I would expect Debasi Tapias pairing at center back there, which is of course a very capable pairing. And another home match here. If the Loons hope to match their home record from last year, Jacob Schneider, our own Jacob Schneider, informing tonight that they pretty much have to win just about every home game from here on out to keep Allianz Field a certified fortress like it has been in years past. But a lot of home games still to go for this team here. A couple of last minute comments we'll get to here. And of course, Leagues Cup. I have in my notes here 3 more MLS matches, and then the Leagues Cup arrives, which Minnesota United will be making its debut campaign in. From Christopher, maybe a hot take, but I think Padelford will be a starter for us by the end of next season. I don't think that's off the table at all. Again, if we hypothetically say he follows a similar developmental curve to Bongi, going from sort of a fringy prospect, right, comes in, gets some minutes late in the game, and then gets more of a foothold. If he develops at the same pace as Bongi, I think absolutely he's a starter by the end of next season, maybe even sooner. Just given how much opportunity there is for fullbacks in the squad to really contribute to the game and really shape what Minnesota United looks to do. And then we'll close out here with some kind words from Andy here. He learns a lot by listening to Post Loons. We always appreciate hearing that. All of us like to get on here and talk, and we like to think that we know things too sometimes, even though we really don't. But we're always happy to chat Loon stuff. Feel free to always tweet us if you're still on Twitter. Otherwise, tune in wherever you get your Sota Soccer, Post Loons, 10,000 Pitches, and all your other fun Minnesota United content. We're always appreciative of you all tuning in. So we'll call it a night there. Thanks everyone for giving us about 45 minutes after the game here. A different Post Loons crew. We'll see you next weekend after the Austin game, and we'll probably see you on the lovely place we call the internet in the meantime. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good rest of your night.